Hello, and thank you for visiting Graphene Business Law. My name is Pamela Metani, and I'm the principal lawyer and founder here at Graphene. If you're watching this video, go ahead and give this channel a subscribe and the video a thumbs up. Here at Graphene, we regularly post content that is most relevant to entrepreneurs and small business owners. However, we also have a few other series on the channel, including this one that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is the student series, where inquiries I receive from students and, of course, burning questions I remember from my own time in law school. I try to dedicate some time to posting these videos for students that, first of all, for everybody, because it's good knowledge, but especially for students that might not have, that shoulder to tap on while in law school and ask these questions to face. So I want this series to be one where students from all backgrounds can come and benefit from the knowledge that is shared. I believe we've covered quite a few topics on the channel so far, including work ethic and survival tips for 1L and how to make strong summaries, and I'll be linking some of those videos down below. However, another top burning question for law school students is one in regards to the curve, the C word of law school. And this question, I don't blame students for having it. They're all coming from different backgrounds. I remember students in my experience in law school, some came, I personally completed my undergraduate studies in Boston, but some students came from the US, some came from Canada, different provinces of Canada, some yet from other countries. Some students had undergrad majors in music, others in, criminal studies, others in science. There is such a range of diversity and walks of life taken by each of those students to get to law school that honestly, for some, the concept of a grading curve is not one that's been encountered before. And that's okay. And that brings it back to the intro of this video and why we're here and why I love to spend the time to help law students with these questions. So I wanted to keep this video on the brief side to just very high level explain what that curve is in law school and what it might do to you as a law student. First of all, the curve does not apply to every single law school class, or I should say it doesn't necessarily apply, and it does not need to apply. Depending on the school you're at, there's a threshold for the class size, and the language oftentimes you'll see is of actively enrolled students or participants. And that size, I've seen it in some schools, it's 20 students, in some it's 30, and the numbers can vary beyond this as well, but 20 to 30 is usually that size where if a class has at least that many students, then the curve will kick in. What does this mean for you? And I'll tell you myself, I experienced the curve even in undergrad, having gone to quite a competitive school, Wellesley College in Boston. The curve meant that sometimes you would get a 96% on an exam, but so does everybody next to you, and all of a sudden that 96 comes to be a B. And why? For some reason, B has been the golden number chosen by schools. B or B minus is where that curve usually the institutions are looking to set it at. Now, this means that first of all, your absolute score, if 96 is amazing. If you're hitting those kind of numbers, big kudos to yourself, regardless of how they get curved. On the other side, sometimes, students get a 36, and that too miraculously comes to be a B. And those are times when those students really are thankful for the curve. But I can't necessarily explain the reason behind why every legal institution has chosen, the curve it's chosen. However, in terms of impact on you, there are some parameters of the curve that you should really be aware of. And the numbers I have here, I'm looking at a little at a sheet of notes I made for myself and to share with you in this video. The numbers I have are estimates across various institutions in Canada in particular, although I don't see why the number would vary greatly. As I mentioned, I did complete my undergrad studies in the US, so for a law school in the US, I don't know that the numbers would vary greatly, but just, you know, for disclaimer and transparency purposes, these numbers were pulled from looking at Canadian law schools. In those classes with that threshold of 20 to 30 students registered, there aren't very many A grades given out. However, fortunately, in most of them, there seems to be even less F grades given out. And I'll read you the percentages I have here. And these, again, were averages pulled across multiple institutions. It seems that a lot of these classes, what the curve is doing is that 10 to 20% of students are receiving A grades, okay? 10 to 20%. And within that, some schools might have caps even on the kinds of A's that are being awarded. For example, A pluses versus A's versus A minuses, but 10 to 20%. And I would say, depending on the instructor as well, this sometimes is a healthier number than you'll see on the grade distribution list. I remember being in law school and there were, you know, classes of 60, 70 students and sometimes 1 or 2 A's given out. So it doesn't have to be 10 to 20%. But again, these are big picture guidelines as to what we see around there. And again, directed to a student that's curious about the curve or just encountering it for the first time. So that's the A's. The next bucket is B's, or as is worded by a lot of schools, A's plus B's. So it's going to be a bigger bucket, and you'd expect it to be, because the average class is coming to an average of a B. The kind of B can vary. Again, there's the minus and the pluses, but big picture, we're looking to bring that curve, whether the average student got 35 and now they have to be bumped to 75, or the average student got 95 on an exam and now we're looking to bring them down to a 75 to satisfy the curve. We're going to have a lot of B's in any given class. Mostly B's, I would venture out to say. And certainly I can say that that's what I've seen in my experience, you know, from other students receiving mostly B's in law school. How many, you ask? What's the number? Up to 80, 85% of a course can be A's and B's awarded, but keeping in mind that the A's may or may not even clock around 10% of the distribution. Coming to that 85% of A's and B's means that, you know, 60, 70% of a class's grades that are awarded can be B's. Numbers may vary. You hear that on infomercials. Results may vary, and you're going to hear it here as well, because I'm not speaking for any law school professor, for any legal institution. I'm speaking solely of my experiences and numbers pulled through research, again, to help those students that want to learn more about why the curve, you know, where these numbers are being pulled out of. These are academic guidelines, you know, conducted by each institution with the numbers they're most comfortable in and they're most comfortable supporting. So about 10% A's, 10 to 20, and if we're grouping A's and B's together, that can be up to 80, 85% of the grades that an instructor is awarding. When it comes to C's and D's, numbers I came across were in the 0 to 10, 5 to 15 range. It can even be up to 20% of the class that on average will end up getting that C. And that is valuable information to know as well, because, you know, it can be disheartening. I remember what it's like to be a law student and work so hard, and, you know, I was fortunate to receive, you know, quite a few A's in law school, but it can still be such an uphill battle to get to that, to get there, because I don't want to say you're not meant to get there and discourage anybody watching this video, but the numbers certainly don't speak to the average student getting there, and that's a fact. Fortunately, though, the curve gives and the curve takes, because the numbers also don't speak to the average student getting a C or a D in a law school case. And when it comes to the Fs, F standing for a failed course, that is the lowest percentage allocation I saw across different schools. 0 to 5 in most instances. It's single-digit percentage units that are being expected to be awarded an F, and even then these numbers are being prefaced with 0 to. So it can be that nobody in the class is failing owing to how that instructor is tightening the curve. For example, within that distribution of 80% of the class being A's and B's, it is 75% of the class receiving a 73 to 74.5, or is the curve more loose? Meaning that to get to that average of 75, somebody got 95, 90, 85, 80, 75, and so on until we average it out to 75. So I can't speak for what your instructor will choose to do. You can go, every school I looked up, I found the answer to the following, which I advise you to do as well. Grade distributions from that course you're in right now from a previous school year, of course, from the past, so that the results have had time to, the professors have had time to review the coursework and publish those results. Look at those as well when you're in doubt. It can be, there are, despite these guidelines of 0 to 5% Fs and 0 to 20% Cs and Ds, and, up to 80-85% A's and B's, there is still work that professors can do within the curve, and it is quite telling that if the threshold is a B, some professors are going for a low B, some professors are going for a high B, and within that B, within whichever variation of low or high B they're selecting, some professors are attaining a high B even with multiple Fs, yet some professors are managing a low B average with no failed students. Okay, these are things you should look for. You should search, your schools and even other schools, just to understand the bigger picture system, right? That it's not just your school that's coming to the setup that you may have found unfair based on how you did an exam and what it ended up curving to. You should research the grading guidelines and the grade distribution list for courses as well. And you should be strategic as well, to know that average means B, and that average efforts produced in the class will generate a B, and that I found in my experiences when those A's were achieved, and actually in multiple courses, the A's I attained were the highest A awarded in that class, and professors usually, at least in my experience, write you a personal email to let you know about that. Otherwise, I'm not sure how I would have known. But to get to those A's takes quite a bit of effort. So maybe for you that effort is worth it. Maybe it's not, knowing that on average you're likely to receive some sort of B, and maybe you want to dedicate that time to mooting or to law school clinics, or it's totally fine to dedicate that time to yourself and your physical health and your mental health and whatever else you have going on in your life. So this video and the content in it as regards grading guidelines is important beyond that grade on an exam and what it came out to, right? The more informed you are as regards these guidelines, you can make bigger life choices as regards your time and your life spent in terms of which of these grading slots you'd like to belong to, and which one you're comfortable with, and which one you feel is worth the effort you're putting into. So I did say I wanted to keep the video short, and I will end it. I'll end it around here. Thank you for watching. Keep the student inquiries coming, and law school can make for a challenging time, and the curve can contribute to that list of challenges. But despite having been a strong student myself, owing to the reasons that I mentioned, I've shared in other videos that I'm linking down below, such as work ethic and discipline, and you know, how to formulate strong summaries. Despite that, the curve worked against everybody I knew in law school, at least at one point, but it also can really save you as well, depending on the course. The truth of the matter is, some professors, you know, are just going to give out a ton of 20s and 30%, but fret not, because if the average student is receiving a 30, chances are the average student will come to see a nice round B on their report card. And that's not, or I should say their transcript, because report cards are for younger students. But that's of course not a promise, it's not a guarantee. I cannot control what your professor assigns you, but it's more a reminder to keep it calm as you navigate these waters, because the curve gives and the curve takes. So thanks again for watching this video. I hope it's been informative, and I'll see you on the next law students video. Thank you.